Hi, I'm Ann Garcia. As the college financial lady and author of How to Pay for College, I've helped thousands of families save millions of dollars on college. Today, I'm going to show you how to fill out the FAFSA. I'm using the Department of Education's demo website, so you'll see exactly what it looks like with one big difference. I'm using last year's FAFSA. So there are going to be a few things that are a little bit different. I will point them out from what you'll see when you go to fill out the FAFSA sometime after October 1st. I will point those out along the way. The first step in filing the FAFSA is creating an FSA ID, and you do that on the Department of Education's website, studentaid.gov. Your student creates an FSA ID, and you as the parent create an FSA ID. Once you've got that, you're able to log into the FAFSA form. Now, if you are going to be filing the FAFSA for the first time this year, I would encourage you, as soon as you're done with this video, to get your FSA ID, yours and your students, because oftentimes they are not created instantaneously, and you'll need to wait a little while once you've got it to actually be able to use it to log into the FAFSA. So the FAFSA comes out on October 1st, and once it's available, you'll go to studentaid.gov and just click on the link for the FAFSA, and here is where you will find yourself. So you can see you can log in as the student, as the parent, or as a preparer. Both the student and the parent have items that they will fill out in the FAFSA process. Either one can start it for them. So I'm going to click on I'm the student, and I'm going to use my FSA ID to log in. And I accept the disclosure form. And here we go. Here's the FAFSA. So as you can see, since I logged in using my FSA ID, it's picked up some of my information that I entered there, and now I'm going to go ahead and complete it. You'll also see as you go through the FAFSA, there's always this virtual help that is specific to the page that you're on, but I'm going to close out of that because that's not what we're looking for. I'm also going to start over on this form. Looks like I've filled it out once before. So the first thing that you will be asked to do is create a save key. Your save key lets you enter your data, start filling out the FAFSA, and then go back. If you need to leave at any point along the way, it'll save your information, and you can come back and pick up where you left off. So you definitely want to do that when you're filing the FAFSA. Not only do you want to do it, but you have to do it. So here we are, and there's always all these, what do you want to do things. If you just hit the continue button at the beginning, you will be launched into the application. And you can see, because I used my FSA ID to log in, it's already got my social security number, first name, last name, and date of birth, because I put those all in my FSA ID. It's got my email address and my mailing address. So that should be the same for you, since you will have created your FSA ID in advance. One thing that's important to look at is at the top of the page, it says whether this page is for student information or parent information. It's really important that you enter the correct person's information in the correct place. So here we go. It asks a few residency questions. So for example, have you lived in your state for at least 5 years? Are you a citizen? What your high school completion status will be, and then what college degree you're working towards. This is the first bachelor's degree. I don't have another one. This next question is really important. What will your college grade level be when you begin the 2022 to 23 school year? Regardless of how many college credits you have earned as a high school student, select never attended college first year in here. First-year students, incoming freshmen, are eligible for far more financial aid and scholarships than our transfer students, so you want to be sure that you are treated as a new incoming freshman in the application and aid process. It also asks everyone, are you interested in being considered for work study? Definitely hit yes there. There's no cost to be considered. Selective service information. If your student's a driver, they can enter their driver's license here. It's not a required field. The next few pages are about determining whether the student is a dependent or independent, and as well as some demographic information. It also asks about education attainment of the parents, and so you choose whatever is correct for you, and then hit continue. You'll add your high school. I don't know any high schools in Maryland, so I'm going to put a high school in. Oh, whoops. I'm going to use a high school in Portland, where I live. And there's my high school, so I select it and then hit continue. So the next page asks you to add colleges that you might want your FAFSA sent to. You can add up to 10 colleges on the FAFSA itself. If you have more than 10 colleges, you can go back and add them when you've finished your FAFSA. Any college that you're considering, you should add in here. Your FAFSA information will be sent to them automatically. It doesn't hurt you at all to have that information sent regardless of the school. I'm going to go ahead and add a school here. See if we can find Oregon State. All right, so I'm going to add that, select my housing plan. I'm going to be on campus. And then you can add additional schools in here. And again, all you're doing is requesting that your FAFSA data be sent automatically to those schools. Unless you send in an application, they won't have any information to match it up with. But it's much easier to add anything that you're thinking of when you fill out the FAFSA the first time around. Anyway, I'm not going to make you sit through me adding a bunch of schools. I'm just going to hit continue. Again, more demographic questions for the student. And remember, whose information are you filling out? This is the student's. This particular student is single, does not have dependents. And here are the FAFSA's additional questions that they use to determine whether a student is a dependent student or an independent student. Now, this is separate from what's on a tax return or anything like that. So this is just how the FAFSA determines whether the student is independent or not. Are they active duty military, a veteran, parents deceased, or students in foster care, emancipated minor, or someone other than your parent or step-parent have legal guardianship. So none of those apply. So I'm going to move on. This particular student was not homeless. It's identifying that that I'm a dependent student, or that the student filing this is a dependent, and so now I'm going to be asked to provide information about my parents. So as you can see now, the FAFSA is asking for parent information. So all those previous questions were about the student. Now we're switching and talking about the parent. And of course, you can see where you are in the form just by looking up at the top. So you're going to check what your parents' marital status is. And this will tell you whose information you provide. So if your parents are married, both parents will provide information. If they're divorced or separated and you live with one more than the other, then that's the one who provides information. If you divide time between your two parents, then the one who provides the most financial support is the one who will fill this out. This is how it will be in 2022 when you fill out the FAFSA. In 2023, students whose parents are divorced are only going to provide the information of the parent that provides the most financial support. So here I'm going to select that my parents are married or remarried. Now, when you say that if your parents are married, this is not asking if your two biological parents are married to each other. It's asking if your parent is married. So I'm just going to say they got married in 2000. And now it's going to ask for the parents' information. And you will just fill this out. Parents' date of birth. So that's your first parent. Of course, parents' email address. And continue. For the second parent, because again, I said I have two parents. And a lot of similar questions for the parents. Have you lived in this state for at least 5 years? And now it's asking demographics about your family. So the first is how many other dependent children do the parents have? So not counting the student who's already been included here. Let's say the student has one sibling. So we enter one in there. And then if you have other dependents, let's say you are supporting an aging parent or some other family member, you can add them in here and those will count towards your family size as well. So this is showing that we have a household size of 4, the student, 2 parents, and 1 other dependent. The next question it's going to ask is how many in the household are in college? So of these 2, I'm going to say I'm filing the FAFSA for my oldest child, so only 1 is going to be in college next year. And then I hit continue. So now we're going to move on to the financials, the big piece of it. And the first thing it will ask for is, have you filed your taxes? Now, since I'm doing last year's FAFSA, it's asking for the 2020 tax return. When you file the FAFSA on or off after October 1st of 2022, it will be asking for your 2021 tax return. The FAFSA uses what's called prior year income, which is a little bit confusing because it's 2022 and you're using 2021's income. But keep in mind that the FAFSA that you file in the fall of 2022 is for the 2023 school year. So basically, it's going to be your most recently completed tax return. It will ask you for your 2020 return. I'm going to check that I've already completed it. The form I filed was a 1040. And our status was married and filed a joint return. So you will be prompted to use the IRS data retrieval tool, and absolutely do this. Do not enter your data manually. The IRS data retrieval tool will link your FAFSA directly to your tax return. It'll pull over all of the information that it needs from your tax return into the FAFSA. You definitely want to do that. Not only does it save you a whole bunch of time, but it will also make sure that your filing is accurate, and it reduces the chances that your FAFSA is going to be pulled for verification. Now, I'm using the demo site, so it's not going to link to the IRS data retrieval tool, so I'm just going to click on skip this. Seeing it really wants me to use it. It's faster and easier. It's so much better. So that's what you're going to do, but I'm not. So I'm just going to enter my data manually. These are the data fields that the FAFSA is going to pick up as you enter it. You also, as you're filing the FAFSA, should have your tax return and your W-2s from that tax year handy, because there is some information off of them that you may need to pull up manually. So I'm just going to enter information here. Again, you're not going to have to do this because you're going to use the data retrieval tool, but I need to fill out all of this information. It's going to pull over from the IRS what your actual federal income tax liability was, as well as special information information that might or might not come through from your tax filing. So you do want to review these fields. When you've done the data retrieval tool, it'll show you all the data that is pulled over, and you'll have an opportunity to review it. A couple of things that I want to point out, because this is special income information that gets pulled over. If you took a distribution from a Roth IRA, you enter that information here. You'll need to pull that from your tax return to look at it. This doesn't include rollovers. It does include distributions from Roth IRAs. So you do enter that information. This is why I always tell people that a Roth IRA is a terrible college planning tool for parents, because even though it saves you having that count as an asset, you do report it as income when you take the distribution out. So if you had done a distribution from a Roth IRA, you would add it to your income by entering it here. Similarly, all of your pre-tax information gets added back to your adjusted gross income. So if you contributed to an IRA or to any kind of self-employed retirement plan, you would add that money back here. Don't add your 401k contributions. Those go in a different place. But let's say this person contributed $5,000 to an IRA. And then likewise, if you had any tax-exempt interest income, you would enter it there. Now we have some additional financial information. If either of your parents paid child support as a result of a divorce, they would include that information here. Earnings from a cooperative education program offered by a college, and then taxable earnings from need-based employment programs, such as federal work study. Again, remember, this is the parent's information. So a student who has work study doesn't enter it here, just if the parent had work study. I'm going to say none of those applied here. Now, next it's going to ask if the parent received any untaxed income other than that. So different sorts of untaxed income. One is any child support that was received. Child support is not taxable to the recipient. And so if you received child support, you would add it back in this field. Housing allowances go in here. Here's another big one: payments to tax-deferred pension and retirement savings plans. So if you were contributing to your 401k with pre-tax dollars, you add those dollars back to your income. You do not add any Roth contributions. You don't add Roth IRAs in the previous screen. You don't add Roth 401k contributions in this screen, but you do need to look at your W-2, specifically boxes 12A through D, to see whether you made any contributions to a retirement account. So let's say this person contributed $15,000 to their 401k. And then any other untaxed income gets added in here. Okay, next big section is parent assets. And good news and bad news, this line, as of today, does the total amount of your parents' assets exceed $4,100, is going away. That's the good news, is it's going away. The bad news is the reason it's going away is you will no longer get an asset protection allowance of some amount of dollars. The way the formula works, that has been eliminated this time around. If your total assets were below that number, you would check no, but of course, everyone's going to be reporting their assets, so I'm going to check yes. Now, this tends to be the area of the FAFSA where I get the most questions, and I think part of it is because the questions are so simple. The first one says, as of today, what is your parents' total current balance of cash, savings, and checking accounts? So that is the total amount of money in all your bank accounts. So let's say let's say I have $7,000 in those accounts. Next, it asks, what is the net worth of your parents' investments, including real estate, but not your parents' home? So this is where pretty much everything else goes. Your 529s for all your children. If you have 3 children and each of them has a 529, you add up the total. If you have a taxable investment account, it goes in here. If you own an investment property, you include the net value of it, which is its value minus its market value minus liabilities. All of those just get totaled up and put in this field. Now, your assets are valued on the day that you file the FAFSA. So one way that you can have less assets is to wait to file the FAFSA until you've paid your big bills for the month, like your mortgage or your credit card bill, because you do not subtract your credit card liability from all of this. So let's say this parent has $50,000 in assets. The next question is, as of today, what's the net worth of your parents' businesses or investment farms? This is not asking about small businesses. In order for it to be included, the business needs to have 100 or more or more than 100 full-time or full-time equivalent employees. Now, this is something that will change with FAFSA simplification in the FAFSA that you will file in 2023. For that FAFSA, you will include the value of a small business. Anyway, I'm going to put 0 in there for now and then hit continue. All right, now I'm on to the student section. So that was everything for the parents. Now we're including the student's financial information. And the student will also report income and assets. This again is saying 2020 tax return. In fact, because this is last year's form, when you do it, it will say your 2021 tax return. And again, we're back to the student. So this is the student's information. A student can have already completed, going to complete. I'm just going to say the student is not going to file their tax return because a lot of students don't. And of course, it's now telling me that I'm not eligible for the IRS data retrieval tool. It's still going to ask me if I earned any money from a job. And let's say, yeah, because jobs pay really well, I made a nice income as a student this year. Students are also asked for additional financial information. Did they pay child support? Did they participate in have earnings from a cooperative education program? And did they have and was any of their taxable income from federal work study? We're assuming this is a high school student who was not eligible for work study because they weren't in college, so I'm just going to put 0s in for all of those. But if your student does have work study, that's something that will subtract out of their income earned. The next section is student untaxed information. So if your student received child support, that would assume that they have children. If they received any kind of housing allowance as military or clergy, if they made pre-tax IRA contributions, they would add it all in here. One of the big questions that trips up a lot of people is this last one: money received or paid on your behalf, not reported elsewhere in this form. The biggest place where this comes into play is if your student has a grandparent or someone else who's set up a 529 account for them, and they take a distribution from it, that would get reported in here. Here's some more good news. Although this question will be on the FAFSA that you will file in 2022, it is going away with the FAFSA simplification, so it will not be there in 2023. So that's a really nice thing for students who have another family member who's contributing to their college costs. We're going to assume that since your student is a high school student, you're filing the FAFSA for the first time, that number is going to be a 0 anyway. And then we hit continue. So student assets, just like the parents, the students report all of the assets that they have. So if they have a bank account, maybe they've got $2,000 in their bank account. If they have a Robinhood account, a crypto account, any investments that they might have, not a Roth IRA because retirement accounts don't get reported, that would be put in here as well. And then likewise, if your student should happen to own a very large business, they would put that, they would enter that data as well. I'm going to put that all as 0 and then hit the continue button. And here I have filled out all the information, but as it says, I'm not done yet because I have to submit it. But first, it's going to give you the opportunity to review all of your information. So you can scroll through, make sure everything is correct. This all looks good. Great, 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 great. All done. Scroll all the way through, see all of this information. And my next step is to sign it. If anything was incorrect, I would just hit the previous button and use the navigation in the FAFSA itself to go back and change that. This all looks good, so I'm going to hit continue. And now it wants me to read all the disclosures, so I agree, and I'm going to sign my FAFSA. Now you can see, since I'm a student and I was logged in with my FSA ID, it signed it automatically for me. The parent has to sign the FAFSA as well, so you will click here, provide parent signature. And I'm just showing you this so you can see that you are attesting and certifying when you sign this that you have filled out everything accurately to the best of your ability. So you agree to those terms, you hit continue, and then you will use your FSA ID to file it, or you have these other options to print a signature page or submit it without signatures, which you'll have to do anyway. So that's it. That is how you file the FAFSA. I hope that this has reduced your terror about it somewhat, but that is really the whole thing. So important points: set up your FSA ID on studentaid.gov ahead of October 1st. And then secondly, have your tax return and your W-2s handy, as well as all of your account statements when you file the FAFSA. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful, please hit like and subscribe to my channel so that you'll get notified when additional videos become available. If you'd like to learn more about strategies for reducing your expected family contribution as calculated by the FAFSA, improving your chances of getting need-based or merit scholarships, check out my online course, The College Financial Plan, at my website, howtopayforcollege.com. Use the discount code at the end of this video to get 10% off on the course, or check out my book, How to Pay for College, available from Amazon and bookstores everywhere. I'm Ann Garcia, the College Financial Lady and author of How to Pay for College. Thanks for watching.